So, a little while ago I put up a poll on Facebook for things I should rant about on Facebook Live, because I'm dimly interested in talking about things that other people are interested in. One of the answers, it got 13 responses, and one of the responses was the responses to this form. So I'm going to talk about that. So the question was, what would you be interested in hearing me rant about next? Pretty straightforward. The first response was, what's going on with ghosts right now? I mean, right now, or when you submitted the form? If you were the person that did that, I'm not quite sure what you're gonna want out of a talk from me about ghosts. Please pop back and give me a direction to go with, because I actually have quite a lot of thoughts about ghosts, so you know. People not realising that the oldest millennials are hitting 40, that is a subject with a lot of... there's a lot of content to be milked out of that subject, put it that way. I think I know who the next one is from. This response says, sad white boys, good places to eat in South London, Brexit and Polish immigration, toxic masculinity, the sociopolitics of the Weimar Republic, marketing and its people. I can talk about most of those things for quite a long time, but there are two things in there that I don't actually have a lot to say about. Good places to eat in South London. I've not lived in South London since I was 15 or so, not counting a year I lived there in my very early 20s. I don't count that year because it was Clapham and Clapham doesn't count. And I suspect last time I visited South London, all the places that I enjoyed eating at when I was a teenager or visiting London in my early 20s have all become trendy coffee bars and fucking boutique shops. My ghetto fabulous little hometown inside London has been thoroughly gentrified, and part of me is pleased and part of me is like, oh, but I want to go to the Caribbean restaurant again. Fuck my life. The other thing that I can't talk about from that list is the sociopolitics of the Weimar Republic. I do not know that much about modern-ish European history. I had a few interruptions in my early primary education, and I actually managed to, due to switching schools like 3 times in a year, for reasons that were not anything to do with me setting anything on fire that time, I managed to miss the section of history where we talked about World War II and World War I, and that sort of basically the entire history from the end of the Victorian era to like the 80s. The bit of education where we cover that I just managed to miss because they did it in year 5 at one school and year 4 in the other, and I missed the crossover point, so I can't actually tell you anything about the sociopolitics of Europe in the last 100 years or so. That is a huge void in my education. And because I never got that foundation to it, it means that I had no interest in it later in life. So pretty much all I know about European history in the last 100 years or so I have learnt from films and occasional Wikipedia binges into very specific things. yeah, that's a thing. Food, I can talk for hours about food. Next one was ADHD. I suspect I know who put that answer in. Maybe I'll talk about that at some point. Whatever you want. I do talk about whatever I want, but it's nice to have some guidance. Also cats. I have quite a lot to say about cats. I think they're great. Yes, I did actually spend quite a long time studying the Tudors and the Victorians. This is why I am somewhat fascinated with the Tudors and the Stuarts and know quite a lot about Victorian era politics and literally nothing about either of the world wars. Well, I say literally nothing. Like, yeah. So that's the thing. So, whenever there's a bunch of people on my Facebook friends list who are various military enthusiasts of different stripes, who are into the whole history of European wars and all that, when all hello Sansa, why are you sitting on my lap? You never do this. It's because I'm talking to someone, isn't it? Someone. 13 people apparently. Sorry, yeah, so when people are posting pictures of like, this is my favourite tank today, I don't know the significance of any of this shit. All of these jokes just go completely over my head, but I'm glad you people are having fun. Fine. Can't get ethics approval to study me as a case study. Maybe. Are you helping, kitten? Thank you. Has society moved beyond the need for genes? I suspect I know who submitted that. And I actually have probably more to say about that than one might expect. So that's interesting. The design of Empire's military council, again, I suspect I know who has submitted that. To that person, I am going to say you are a troll. Because you know what I'm going to talk about and you just want me to say it to a dimly wider audience because you think I'm right. Yeah, if that was you and you are who I think you are, PM me, dickhead. Cheeses. Don't have that much to say about cheeses, but I could probably wring some content out of that. The responses to this form, well, that's what this video started off as. How nobody actually talks to one another if they have a problem. Again, that is something I could talk about for literally hours. And final response on my little survey. Sansa, really? This is helping. Thanks, kitten. She is demanding tribute. Do I have any cat treats on my desk? From what I can see on the comments coming up on my phone, it seems like all of us had very, very different experiences of history in our school education, which is amusing and kind of explains why there is no political consistency in anybody's view whatsoever in the modern era, because we all have different formative historical contexts for everything that we encounter. Where are the treats? Sansa, where are the treats? What have you done with them? Aha! Dreamies! So the final response on the survey was, inspired by the piano playing twat in Bristol, men who think proving they love a woman is all it takes to get her to reciprocate, and if it doesn't work it actually means you need to prove it, read Stalk harder. that is again a subject that has many hours of content in it. Kitten, is that what you wanted? Has the tribute been satisfied? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, I think Blackadder Goes Forth was my early introduction to World War II history. That was in lieu of a primary school education in it. My grandma did take me to the World War II war cemetery in France when I was quite young. It was some church trip I think we went on, because we went to war cemeteries and we went to a couple of really cool churches and stuff like that. Sorry, yes, Blackadder Goes Forth was World War One. I get them mixed up, okay. I had a 50-50 chance of getting that right. Yeah, so I went to war memorials, and obviously I knew about the Holocaust and all that stuff. Almost culturally, like we did a lot of Holocaust, but nothing about the whys of it. So we did. This was in English, not history, because we were studying Anne Frank's diary, and we actually went to Anne Frank's house on a school trip to Amsterdam in Year 6. Cat, when you were getting those treats out of my hand, you bit me. You literally bit the hand that feeds you. So yeah, Holocaust, suffering, all of that. We did that, but none of the political history of either of the world wars. I think the first time I learned anything about Archduke Franz Ferdinand was when a band named themselves after him, and I had to Google the reference. Yes, year 6 trip to Amsterdam, well, Holland in general. We went to Amsterdam for a few days. We stayed at what was basically a youth hostel at a little Dutch seaside town, and we also went to Efteling theme park, which was really fun. Yes, the teachers were all either drunk or stoned most of the time. It was great, and apparently that was the last reasonably extravagant school trip that happened at that particular school, so yeah. Yeah, I didn't do GCSE history either, so when it came to secondary school, I dropped out of secondary school at the beginning of year 9, I think. I can't remember what we covered in history in year 7 and 8. I think it might have been Romans and I seem to remember we did like a whole history module on pirates, which was a bit weird, but it was like 1999 or 2000. Maybe pirates were in fashion then, I don't know. So this live video and comment thread has become a discussion about GCSE history and various other things, which was basically the one thing that I didn't feel qualified to talk about because I didn't really do it. Which is interesting for various reasons. So yeah, as I was saying, absolutely no formal education really in the politics behind either of the world wars in Europe, and nothing about the American Civil War. I think I have learned most of my stuff about the American Civil War from Hamilton. I was this year old when I watched Hamilton. Yeah. So we did, Sansa does look goddamn glorious, and she very rarely comes and hangs out on my desk. I think she's coming here because she's heard me talking. So that's fun. We did a lot of Roman stuff in primary school because I went to primary school in London, and there was a lot of cool Roman stuff about the Roman settlement there, and we were within spitting distance of thousands of various different Roman museums, Roman artefacts, and stuff like that. We did a whole bunch of stuff on dinosaurs. Does that count as history? Maybe? I don't know. I can't remember what that was in. Was it history? Was it geography? I don't know. Was it science? Who can tell? So, yeah, I'm reading as much as I can from the comments here, and it does sound like everyone in their different little regional education systems, and depending on their relative socioeconomic privilege and the year they happen to go to school, makes a huge difference in what history you were exposed to, and thus complete lack of consistency in how being a product of that education system will inform your worldview. Which is kind of fascinating and something I had not thought about until literally this moment. So people in the comments down here are sharing the things that they studied. We skipped the World Wars. We did a lot about the Tudors. The reason both of my primary schools did a lot about the Tudors was because I went to Catholic school, and the Reformation is kind of a big deal to the Catholics, and learning about it and why it happened and the politics behind it was quite important to the understanding of our religion. And much as some people say that separation of like religion and education and church and state and all that stuff is good, their coverage of the Tudors and the specifics of the politics around that era was really, really good and really comprehensive. It got me really interested in it as a historical period because it is fascinating. So yeah, that's why we got an overload of Tudors. We got an overload of Romans again because of the Christianity link in there. So this is one of those things where history and RE crossed over quite heavily in my school because the whole finding out about the politics, some of which is mythological politics, some of which is very real world, pre-Christian Palestine politics that led to the crucifixion of Jesus under the administration of a Roman province is important to our religion. I'm not Catholic anymore. That's possibly a concept for another video. But yeah, so the coverage of that, certainly from a historical perspective, was possibly more comprehensive than the state school education in those very specific topics. But yeah, World Wars? Nah. Or at least I wasn't there the year they did World Wars, which was sad. the Tudors also tied into a lot of other curriculum stuff. So we did Tudors, Reformation in religious studies, and Shakespeare in English. And those all tie together quite neatly, so that is a really good comprehensive curriculum where you're looking at something from several different angles over the course of however many thousands of years we were studying the Tudors for. So you get a really, really well-rounded view of this one very specific period of time, which doesn't have... I was going to say it doesn't have that much relevance to the modern era, but it really does. It was a ruler who decided that the rules didn't apply to him and thus wanted to do something different, which led to the delegitimization of a major world religion in one country that then later spawned America and all of their little religious subcults. So it is quite important to current world politics because the Reformation leads to the split from the Church of Rome by the Church of England, which leads to Church of England religious missionaries and religious intolerance in the UK, which eventually leads to the colonisation of America, which leads to religious fundamentalism in America because we exported a lot of religious bullshit that way. And that then leads on and on and on and on and on and on, and eventually we get Trump. I've made some logical leaps there, but hopefully you can follow that train of thought. So, yeah. I really want to try and expand Charlotte's comment there. Yes. Yes, I think Sansa is confused as to who I'm talking to. Yeah, so he persecuted a bunch of religious people into America, and that kind of explains America. I mean, it doesn't explain America, but it explains a lot of the original cultural identity of America. And then we exported all of our crime to Australia. And that also kind of explains Australia in a lot of ways. And then we colonised, subjugated and murdered quite a lot of India, and I'm not sure if that explains India. I don't know that much about India. Like, I know it was bad times for a lot of people. I know about the whole Churchill and the genocide and all that, but I couldn't necessarily tell you why that happened. What else did I study? Okay, so I didn't do a history GCSE because by that point I was in the secondary school for troubled kids that set shit on fire. But what I did end up learning about due to that place was communist China, which is not, I think, something they intentionally put on the curriculum, but one of the reading texts I was given for my GCSE English exam at that point was a semi-autobiography of a young woman growing up in China who was still alive at the time of publishing. It was a fairly modern book. Not actually sure when it was. I think she was growing up in China in the 50s, maybe a bit before then. And it was a version of her autobiography that was sort of child friendly, but I got fascinated with her story and ended up tracking down some of her other work and a bunch of her stories about living in China in that period. Bye, cat. yes, I ended up tracking down a bunch of her other work about living in China and found the whole thing fascinating and just went off on this Wikipedia adventure, except Wikipedia I don't think existed when I was 15, so I probably actually literally went to the library for this. Yes, I used to go to libraries sometimes and look at stuff in books. It's weird, isn't it? So yeah, accidentally ended up learning about communist China. It's a bit of a weird one. In Carter 95. Oh shit, yeah. Mind Maze. Fuck yeah. Best video game of my childhood. Yeah. What else? So yeah, we did go to Amsterdam because we were learning about the Holocaust but not the politics of World War II. And we went to Anne Frank's house and the attic that the family lived in. And when we got there, we went through the hidden bookcase that led to the stairs into the attic rooms. And so when I'd read Anne Frank's diary as a 12-year-old and we talked about it in class and stuff like that, I had imagined this family literally living in an attic like you'd see in a British house. So I was thinking of I was imagining this family basically huddled up under roof beams with fiberglass insulation under them, because for some reason I did not conceptualise the space they were talking about at all. And then we actually physically went to Anne Frank's house in the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam, and the attic of that house was fucking huge. Like, it was not big enough for the families that were hiding there, but it wasn't a tiny room with sloped ceilings. There was actually quite a lot of space. I remember me and my friend Carrie went into Anne Frank's house, and we're like, being 12-year-old shitheads, we were looking around being like, what the fuck she's complaining about? She's got her own bedroom. Yes, in hindsight, I was a 12-year-old shithead, but it was just one very confusing moment of, you know, you expect something in your head and then you see the reality and you're like, this is not... My expectations were not managed when it comes to the Anne Frank Museum. However, it was a really good place to visit. Like, it wasn't enjoyable, it wasn't a theme park, but it was very educational and quite fun. No, fun wasn't the word I wanted. Educational, enlightening, not entertaining but important. There we go. That was the sentence I wanted to say, but my brain was like, no, put a short word there. Thanks, Monica. Right. I have rambled about nothing for a little while now, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I'm going to go because I need to go and drop the kids off at the pool, so bye!